Okay, I'm back. Okay, so whoever is joining, I'm sending you the link again, the same that I sent you in WhatsApp. So it's the link for Nearpod, where all you need to do is just to put your name. This is an interactive presentation tool, and basically you will be watching the screen of Nearpod and pretty much listening to me while I'm talking here. Whoop, I lost the person. There you go. Okay, one more. Hey, more new people. Hi. We're waiting for people to connect and also to get connected to Nearpod. I keep sending the link for those who just entered here. You can use that link from anywhere. Dulce, Avi, Javier, Luisa, Valerie, Zulmi. Excellent. I can see you here. You cannot hear me at all? Like this? Can you hear me now? Oh, this is weird. No? Yes. Yes. I'm back. Okay, excellent. I apologize. Thank you. All right. Hey, we're back. That's because when you work from home, you have all kind of other noises around you. And my son was asking me something, so I had to disconnect and I didn't connect back, but there you go. All right. So welcome those of you who are here. Technically, we are 21. And right now there are 13 people together with myself. So if you could please connect to the Nearpod application, whoever has not connected yet. From the PC, you just click on it, on the link, it should take you there. You just put your name. More people. Hi, Axel. That was Miriam. Hi, Miriam. So please, hi. Could you please, guys, connect to the link of Nearpod? Whoever is there, excellent. If we're waiting for somebody, that's okay. The whole mode of presentation is that you will be listening to my voice through Google Meet, and you will be participating and watching the presentation through Nearpod. Nearpod, apparently, it's an interactive presentation software where you can participate in every activity. You will see it, right? Some things that you will be able to click on, yes, like for example, PDF files or interactive questionnaires, and some things you will be able to watch on your screen. Okay, so for example, on 2 of the slides, there are videos. So you would have to click on that video and watch it in your own device, if you're watching it on a laptop or if you're watching it in the computer. I'm sorry, or any kind of other device, right? I will not be commenting the video. I can see 10 people connected, excellent in there. So I will not be commenting the video, but they're pretty short, and after we watch the video, we come back and continue the conversation. That's more comfortable rather than projecting the screen, because sometimes when we project the screens, they get stuck, yes, or not all of the videos have good sound. In case of this specific online tool for conferences, Google Meet, it doesn't have the connection for simultaneously using my computer sound and the microphone. So if I project it to you, I don't have to disconnect my microphone, then put the video, then again connect my microphone. Yes. So in order to avoid all of these inconveniences, that's why we're going to use the Nearpod. So let's just give 1 more minute pretty much to people and we can start. Okay, whoever is connected, I will give a click to the first file and you can watch my CV basically, information about me. It's good to see some of you. You're my students or you know me from professional environment. And as you can see, I have experience in being coordinator, teacher trainer. And this is the experience of combining all of that experience that I have from previous years and bringing them to the new online environment, right? So, for example, I have taught different topics to teachers from small groups like 2, 3, 5, up to large groups like in TTS, teacher training sessions. And I have taught online classes to large groups. For example, at the university where I teach right now, I have sometimes more than 40 students connected at the same time. And after a lot of situations that I have seen with my students and with the teachers, yes, and some questions that I have asked. And for example, when I had people coming to my academy and asking me questions like, so how long does it take for me to learn English? Yes, or so how many hours should I take classes per week, for example? Yes, or how should I know my level? Or how do I plan the classes, right? What if I don't have a book? What if I do have the book? What does it mean, etc., right? So based on all of that information and the doubts people had, and maybe the questions that I asked, I started with this idea of some webinars of basics. This is not something focused on online teaching, though if you want to continue with this and if you have time to try and work on online tips, we can also do that. For example, this application of Nearpod. So again, please, if you can get connected to the Nearpod, you will be able to see, right, right now a document with my information, my experience, etc. And after that, we can move on to the next slide. Right, the next slide is a collaborative slide. So I will ask you to present yourselves a little bit. It's loading. And the question is, tell us more about yourself. Are you currently teaching? How would you describe your English level? There are no correct or incorrect answers to this question, right? What we have is the question of tell us more about yourself, and you can type your answer on the screen and just post it. And we will be seeing different people answering. So please, if you're still not connected to Nearpod, there's a link in chat. There's a link in WhatsApp. There's a link in your Gmail. I can also project it on my screen, but it's not so much fun. So once you're connected to Nearpod, you should see something like that. Tell us more about yourself. Are you currently teaching? How would you describe your English level? If for whatever reason you cannot get connected, so please observe. So basically what we do here is we type something. So for example, are you currently teaching? Yes, I am. And how would you describe your English level? Let's say proficient. You can write anything you consider appropriate. It can be intermediate, high intermediate, advanced, 80%, or name of the level you're using. If anybody needs help connecting, you can either type me a question or you can ask me a question if you unmute your microphone. If you can get connected to Nearpod. There's a link again. So I start with this question because we can think of different definitions for levels, for English levels, right? Sometimes when you make your own CV, or I don't know, maybe you ask your students about the English level, you can get all kind of different answers, right? The typical answer is in percentage or in the numbers, because Guatemalan system has the number of 100 points, and those 100 points technically should give people some kind of answer, right? For example, what is your English level? And people say, well, 80%, yes? Or what is your English level? And they can say, well, it's high intermediate. Or what else can we find there? Yes, like I said, proficient, for example. What does that mean? So could you just type in the answers in Google Meet if you were able to answer something in Nearpod? Did you post anything? Just say yes if you did. Miriam, yes, excellent. Anyone else? Yes, excellent. Okay, you're working on it. That's fine. Let's give you a moment. Helen, yes. All right. So first, the idea is to see some different answers, right? For example, if you can give like to answers of other people, yes, to get acknowledged and to acknowledge others. And then we will be moving to the next idea, right? So the idea, like I mentioned, so sometimes there are so many words or numbers or letters or something like that that we can use for English level that sometimes it can be confusing, right? Also, the things that we hear, or the things that you guys answered, right, in Google Forms in this case, I will show you in a moment, right, how familiar you are with an international system of languages. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to see in Nearpod, in the Nearpod, I cannot, even if I project my screen, you will not hear the audio, but if you're Nearpod, yes, right here, you will be able to watch the video. And that video, I had it on Facebook, and if you know me from Facebook, you have probably seen it. It's a video that shows different things about how people answer the questions about a language, English language level. I can see 13 of you connected to Nearpod. Tulmi, Udair, Valerie, Paulina, Miriam, Luis, Luisa, Ligia, Javier, Helen, Axel, Abby, and Dulce. Dulce is in red though. So if you need to reconnect or something, and if you cannot connect, then I will show you from the screen only without the audio, okay? So in this case, you can play the video on your device. The video is only 52 seconds long. So we will continue our conversation in a minute. So if you have seen the video from my screen and from your screen, yes, this is just an example of some representations of levels, yes? So if you can see people say, I have level 9 of Academia Europea, I have level Communicative English 1 from IGA, or I have the average score of 80% of all of my courses, or I studied in Calusac, etc., right? But then what happens when we have so many different levels? Yes, what happens if you go from one place to another to work? What happens if you want to evaluate your own level, yes, and you want to be more objective on the level of your students? So I asked you in Google Forms, yes, we had 19 answers. And the question was, how familiar are you with CEFR levels and descriptors? I specifically didn't put the answer to what is CEFR, right? Whoever wanted to search for it could search for it. Yes, I have here one person who answered pretty well. Yes, I'm familiar with it. And most of the people, yes, were in the range from not at all to average, yes, knowledge of CEFR. This is good. This means that you have heard it before, yes, and probably you're here to learn a little bit more. And of course, I don't pretend to answer 100% of your doubts or the questions about it, yes. But in the end, I will send you the document that I created and that also has links that you can search for. And this is another thing where just yesterday I saw the reference for the levels of CEFR. That was the article shared by Richmond Centroamérica in Facebook, and it's in El País, an online newspaper. And the question that was titled in the newspaper was ¿Qué debe saber un profesor para dar una clase bilingüe? Con tener un buen nivel de inglés no basta. And probably here you can see that in between these lines, yes, we have things like B2, B2, C1, B2, C1, etc., right? So in this newspaper, people who wrote the article, they actually manage the levels of Common European Framework, and they mentioned that in Spain, yes, at least B2 is necessary, and it says regiones como Madrid y Navarra piden ya un C1, right? So what does it mean? That's why we're pretty much here, right? To see what it means. So here's the general information. Yes, what is Common European Framework for Languages? Specifically for languages, yes, this is the one that starts from 2001. It says it's a common reference developed by Council of Europe. It was published quite some time ago, yes, at the beginning of pretty much this century. And it gives detailed descriptions of language learner skills. Now, common European frameworks don't only refer to languages. In 2017, the most recent one is called Common European Framework for Digital Skills of Teachers. This one is extremely interesting. This is something else me and my partners are working on presenting that information. That one is in Spanish because it was originally from Spain. This one is translated in 40 languages. Yes. If you go to the links later in the document that I share with you, you will see that Common European Framework descriptors of the levels are translated to 40 languages. What does it mean? Yes, it says here, it's not a methodology. It's a universal description system that can be applied to any language. So for example, if you are a native speaker of Spanish and you take an exam that is supposed to evaluate your level according to Common European Framework, you should get C2, right? Because C2 is the highest level out of 6. I will show you the levels in a moment, but if you have already noticed, the levels are A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. Level C2 is called proficiency of a native speaker. Now, I speak 3 languages, right? I speak Russian as my native language, English as my second language, and Spanish as my third language. So if I take the same exam for Spanish language, I should not get C2, even though I have been in Guatemala for 10 years. Yes, I should get C1 as the highest level. Honestly, I haven't taken a formal Spanish exam, but in English, I do have C1. Right, next. What is important about Common European Framework? Says it creates a reliable transparency and coherence. It establishes a shared understanding of language levels. I think one of the purposes of this informational webinar is to show you that some standards are actually very useful. Yes, of course, we talk about creative teaching. Of course, we talk about multiple intelligences. Of course, we talk about many other things when we are teachers. But this is not about methodology. Yes, it's about the reference. So if we take this reference and we take our students and we take our knowledge, we can assess where we are right now and how long probably it's going to take me to get to the next level. And actually, I have that answer for you also in the end of the presentation, right? Now it says here, this framework is used by publishers, curriculum designers, teacher trainers, exam developers, obviously by teachers, and also it is used by employers and corporate training departments. Okay, so if you know your level or if you have taken a level test that has a common European framework reference, then whether you're looking for a new job or you're training teachers, yes, or you are a coordinator, you can have better understanding of the path that language learners can take. Let's see, this is another video. You can also watch it on your screen. This video takes a little bit over 2 minutes, so I will also launch it here, only that you cannot hear my video and you cannot hear me meanwhile. So please, if you're watching from your screens, whoever is not, I'm asking you please to connect to Nearpod from this link and watch the video about Common European Framework. I will be quiet for 2 minutes. If you have finished watching the video, please say yes, so I can continue with the next slide. Whoever is done. Thank you, Valerie. This video is in public access. You can type it again in YouTube and watch it again, yes, but the general idea there, excellent, thank you. Mostly yes, 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 perfect. Ariel, Rodrigo, Jose, excellent. Okay, so again, you can watch it later, right, if you want to get a little bit more information, but what important thing is that doesn't matter why you're studying English, yes? If your English is professional or if your English is everyday English, it can still be on the level of European framework. For example, let's say somebody comes and says, okay, so I work in the office, yes, and I travel a lot, and my English level is A2. And then somebody comes and he says, okay, I'm an engineer and I studied English and it's level A2. And then somebody else comes and he says, oh, I was in the at school or in the university, and by the end of the general English course, I took the exam and that's A2, which means that all of those people can do the same things in English language, okay? Their reading skills, their listening skills, their writing skills, and their reading skills are similar. So there are descriptors of everything that those people can do. Now, if we move on, I would like you to answer this question. How would you assess your English level according to CEFR level distribution? This is the assessing. Yes, if you're in Nearpod, so you can click on the answer. It's not about correct or incorrect answer. Yes, it's about your assessment. If you have ever taken the exam, you should know it. If you haven't, this is just an idea that you can give us. Yes. I will be showing you your results in a moment in general. So here you can see the distribution of levels, right? Of your assessing of the levels. This is interesting, right? So you haven't read all of the descriptors, but you can assess your level. For example, we say that levels A1 and A2, they refer to the beginner, yes? Levels B1 and B2, they refer to intermediate level. And levels C1 and C2, this is proficiency and high proficiency. Yes, like I said, high proficiency, it's slightly more complicated to reach. However, if you lived for a long time, in the country, in the English-speaking country, for example, yes, you can achieve that level. So let's see if more people can respond to this in Nearpod screen. I think I can show you the student view. That's what you should be seeing. Yes, so we have some people who have not responded yet. We have people at level B2, 37%, people at level C1, 12%, people level B1, and nobody responded those levels, yes, which is also understandable. Now, remember that article that I showed you from the newspaper? Yes, it said that English teachers should be in the level B2 or C1, right? Now, what does it mean specifically? If we look more deeply into the descriptors, I will change the slide right now. You will learn that Common European Framework has the descriptors that are general, yes, the scales. For example, there are general scales, and you can see the difference. If I look at the A1 beginner, because true beginner Asking you for a code. Okay, let's see. Your code is. Okay, David, can you see the code? Excellent. All right, there you go. Yes, perfect. Okay, so the code, if you still needed the code, there's the code. You can still click on the link for the Nearpod. Yes, join Nearpod. Let me copy it for you again. Whoever's still not there, try to enter. Yes, it's more fun when you're inside. All right. Continue. So here is this description of level A1. It says the person who has studied and who has reached level A1 can understand and use familiar everyday expressions and very basic phrases. So that person can speak, but with familiar expressions and very basic phrases, aimed at the satisfaction of needs of concrete type. He or she can introduce himself and herself and others and ask and answer questions about personal details such as, and here goes the list of vocabulary slash topic of conversation slash functions. Yes, where he lives, people he knows, things he has, can interact in a simple way provided the other person talks slowly and clearly and is prepared to help. Okay, so sometimes people say, so look, I understand a lot, but I cannot speak. Yes, what happens to those people? They may have higher level of reading and listening. They can probably reach B1, yes, even B1, and then in speaking they could be an A1. Yes, so the idea is to get them on the level, right? Now what happens with people in B1? If you compare this, then it says that person can understand the main points of clear standard input of familiar matters regularly encountered in work, school, leisure, etc. Can deal with most situations likely to arise whilst traveling in the area where the language is spoken. Look at this difference, right? So A1 will be able to communicate or understand something that is on the level of input that is slow and that is modified. Yes. Now the person with level B1 can also produce simple connected text on topic which are familiar or of personal interest, can describe experiences and events, dreams, hopes, and ambitions, and briefly give reasons and explanations for opinions and plans. If you notice here, there's no specific information for. You're welcome. There's no specific information right now about grammar or vocabulary. Yes, this is something we really want to see usually, but it's more like description of general ability. So if this is English language, this is what I can do in B1. If this is Spanish language, this is what I can do in B1. If this is French, this is what I can do in B1. You understand? So it's not related to special grammar categories. It is related to special skills. But if we go further, yes, this was supposed to be GIF, but somehow it's not moving, the nerd one, yes? It says other descriptors, and in other descriptors we have specific things. For example, understanding of language. If you look at the full document, and I will send you the link for that, yes? If you look at the full document, there is understanding that is divided in listening and reading. Then there is speaking that is divided in spoken interaction and spoken production. And there is the block of writing. But besides, each of these scales have sub-levels. For example, for speaking, you can find a description of range, accuracy, fluency, interaction, and coherence. I think there's a mistake here, I apologize. Okay, so if you want to read the descriptors and if you want to assess your own level, you can do it. Yes, but of course, first you need to understand what is written there. If you want to assess your students, you can have the descriptors. Yes, you can look at the descriptors, and for example, next time when they do show and tell or video presentation, you can see, aha, here's the range, accuracy, fluency, interaction, coherence. Yes, or when they read or listen and you see their difficulties or what is easy for them, you can also read the descriptor so you can evaluate that. Yes, however, it's not necessary anymore to do it manually with every single student, for example. Yes. I have a question. Yes, if you can see your screen in Nearpod. Why do you think, or why do teachers need to know about CEFR levels? So you as teachers, tell me, is it for planning their courses to prepare the students for language exams? Yes, is it for choosing appropriate material, evaluate their knowledge, or if you're still not sure, you can also say that. So let's see what kind of answers we can get. Is it necessary to know that much, or should I just take a book and work on it, or should I just make up a plan and work on it? You can probably answer for more than one. I will show you how the answers are going. Great, almost everybody has answered. Let me see how it looks in the student screen. Okay, so you can see, yes, that we have most common to choose appropriate materials for the students. Excellent. To plan their courses and classes. Yes. Let me go back to the teacher screen. I didn't put the answer to all of the above. Yes. But technically, except for I'm still not sure, the answer is all of the above. It works for choosing appropriate material, like material that has already been made and you can find it in free access in the internet, or you can buy it for your students, like ordered, so students buy it and they can use it, right? To plan the courses, because those of you who work in schools, maybe you are not the ones making decisions about the books, but those of you who have private students, for example, yes, you are the one making those decisions. But how do you make the decision of where to start and how to get there, right? So CEFR is a good path for that. If you say to prepare students for the level exam, of course, and the next topic of the next webinar is actually the overview of different exams, of how they assess different skills, what kind of diplomas you get, and what you can use those diplomas for. So in the future, if you want to join for the next webinar, that will be the topic. Level exams are important for us teachers. Yes, if I have this level exam confirmation, I can always attach it to my CV, and wherever I go or whoever asks me for my English level, it's not about, oh, let's talk and you will see it, right? Or pass me your exam. You just pop up your certificate and you say, hey, this is my level, right? And also to evaluate the knowledge. So if we teach at level A1, then we evaluate at level A1, right? If we teach at level B1, then we appropriately evaluate level B1. Can we modify some things? Of course we can. Yes, we can modify, add some information, yes, to your evaluations in this case, because you know what specific vocabulary, what specific topics or skills you are teaching. But in general, you can find a lot of information about students' level and the CEFR descriptors. I will move on to the next slide, all right? So this is an example of how you can assess the material that you are taking for your students. Probably it's a little bit small, but this is the English language teaching catalog of Richmond. And in Richmond, when you enter to each of the pages of the book, you can see the level, the CEFR level. It's right there. It's the third link. Yes, here you can find scope and sequence. You can look at sample materials, and you can see what levels you can reach with this material. The book of BIP comes from elementary school. It has 6 levels, but all 6 levels are within level A1. Yes, so you can evaluate the material and say, okay, my students will finish level A1, yes, and they will be confident users of English at level A1. This is the book for teenagers called Stopwatch, and you can see on the screen, or you can later look at the catalog. It has 3 levels. So if your students study 6 levels of Stopwatch, they will be able to demonstrate understanding and use of English at level B1. But of course, it depends on how you, as a teacher, or your school decide to take the books. If you only take books 1 to 3, you will not reach level B1, right? And again, is that bad? No, it's not. As long as the levels A1, A2, B1 are complete and you can prove, yes, that students are at that level, that's fine. Level A2 is a user of language. Yes, they can speak on familiar topics. Probably he or she is not going to pass TOEFL IBT, but is it necessary for everybody? Now here's one of the newest books for adults, and it's called Personal Best, and the book of adults goes to level C1. There are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels, and as you can see, the books for C2 barely exist because C2 is, like I said, nearly native speaker or native speaker. I can tell you from my personal experience that when I was studying English and it was in the university, and I traveled to the United States and I came back, and only after that I was able to work on level C1. Before that, we had the book of C1, and even though I spent many years with private teacher and I have loved English for all my life, I was not able to work on level C1. It was very complicated. We had Oxford books of Headway, and I remember that in one of the exams I had to copy because level C1 was just way too proficient for me. Then I traveled to the United States. I spent there 4 months and I heard all kind of accents. I spoke about a lot of topic with people who I worked with. When I came back and we continued with the book, I finally felt comfortable, yes. So level C1 is pretty advanced. We're talking about many hours of practice. And then finally, you can see that some exam preparation materials can also take you to different levels. So for example, in case of Richmond, you can find practice tests for A2 and B1. Yes, which means that you need to know which level your students have completed and what material for preparation they can use so that they can pass language tests. Remember that language tests usually are not to fail or to pass. They actually give you the reference again of your English level. So if you pass the English test, let's say, which one? Versant. Yes, and you have level A2, that doesn't mean you failed. That doesn't mean you have 30% of language. No, that means that you're English user at level A2. So you know that 2 years later, for the future, yes, when you take that exam again, you should improve to the next level or to the 2 levels from that. Now, I would like you to please click on that document. Hopefully you can see it in your computers, in your cell phones. This is our last document before we pass to some fun part of questions and everything. And this is a document that I will send you. Yes, this is a document that I typed basically in because unfortunately I have not been able to find online appropriate equivalent. That document I got from one of the teachers who worked for me, and he gave it to me. He was like, look, this is cool. And I was like, yeah, well, this is really cool, actually. And if you look at this document, it is divided, of course, in columns in levels, which are A1, A2, B1, B2, C1. But if you scroll down, it has the description of functions, grammar, discourse markers, vocabulary, and topics. And like I said, some resources for you to look at later. You will be able to observe this document without any rush later, but what I'm trying to say is, for example, if I need to teach my students on level B1, for example, where do I start? So I gave them the test. online test, a free online test. There are a bunch of free online tests for that. And my students are A2, B1. Yes, it's also possible that people can be in the border of the levels. Okay, so if my students are in the border of level between A2 and B1, that means that I can start taking the topics and combining the topics of B1. For example, I want my students to be able to, let's say, describe past experience and events. Yes, remember that language is not only about vocabulary and grammar, it's about what can I do with this language. So function describing past experience, then I can look at how I can combine that with the next topic. For example, in grammar, I have a list of a lot of things. These lists are in alphabetical order. So please don't pay attention to the order and say, oh, first I have to teach adverbs, then I have to teach comparatives. No, 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 no. Okay, this is the alphabetical order. So here I have, oh my God, look at that. Past continuous, past perfect, past simple, and past tense responses. All of these categories are related to my question of how can I teach my students to describe past experiences and events? Yes. So for that, they need to know grammar of past perfect, past simple, past continuous, responses, questions in the past, etc. Right? They can even need passive voice maybe. Then I go to discourse markers. So my students need to be able to connect words expressing cause and effect, contrast, and they need to use linkers in sequence. Of course, if they talk about past events, yes, they need to be able to say first, then, before, after, and all kind of connecting phrases. Then I go to the vocabulary. And a vocabulary list, there are some ideas. Yes, for example, health and medicine, travel services, transportation, emotions and feelings. Now, if I'm teaching them past tense, yes, and I'm the one who decides in what order to teach them, I can take any vocabulary. For example, I can take health and medicine and work on describing past experience and events using simple past. Using simple past and past perfect, using simple past and past continuous, right? I can take the topic of travel, services, and transportation and again use the grammar and the function combined with the vocabulary. And then finally, there is a description of topics that students should manage. And if you look at the list of vocabulary, at the list of topics, and at the list of grammar, you will see that some things are repeated, and that is okay. That means if people talk about leisure activities in level A1, they talk about leisure activities in level A2, that means they have already improved. They can make larger sentences, they can respond more spontaneously, they can also use wider range of vocabulary. And if they talk about leisure in level B1, right, they can combine all of the previous information with the level B1 functions. And like we said in the beginning, level B1 functions are huge. And if you look at the functions of level C1, you will probably see some words that you have not seen before, maybe. When I was typing those words, I was like, whoa, those words are very complicated. For example, we have here expressing shades of opinion and certainty, responding to counter arguments, speculating and hypothesizing about causes sequences, synthesizing, evaluation, and glossing information, right? So if I'm going to teach level C1, first of all, I should know, yes, and I should have practiced all of these functions, all of those grammar points that are like a pie, yes, top of the pie of level C1. I should be able to, yes, work on those topics like scientific developments and technical and legal language, yes, and combine all of that with the vocabulary. So that's how we can prepare our classes. This is how we can choose the books. This is how we can evaluate our students, right? So in order for us to get to the end of this presentation, I made this slide. You can search for this infographics. Yes, it's a little bit small, but I will just show you the words, the keywords. Yes. So how long does it take to reach proficiency? So what do I tell to my students when they come and they say, teacher, how long is it going to take me to learn English, right? So you say, okay, let's work on this. There are 3 groups of languages. Remember that Common European Framework is not necessarily made only for English or Spanish. Yes, it can be applied to 40 languages or more. So for example, if we take group of easy that are green, group of medium that are red, and group of blue, we're gonna see that easy languages, which are English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian, etc., they take about 600 hours to become proficient. 600 hours of classes. If you consider 6 levels, that's 100 times or hours of classes per level. Yes, or it can be more, because what I tell to my students, it's up to you now. What do you do with the information that it's 600 hours? Yes. If we take the languages of medium difficulty, here is my Russian language, my native language. Yes, there are other like Polish language, etc. Right? They take more than 1,000. If you look at this number says 1,100. And if we go to the very last category, and don't cry, if you have ever thought about studying Chinese, it's like my mom says, right? She says, why do you study French, for example? She's like, you should study Chinese. And I'm like, yeah, well, maybe you should study Chinese, because if we take the languages of Arabic, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and I'm not mistaken, Hebrew, they require 2,200 hours to get to the proficiency, right? So what do you tell to your students now? So please, this is our final stage. I'm done with the presentation, and I'm ready for some questions. If you don't mind, we can do it in interactive form again in Nearpod. You can share something you have learned today, or you can ask me a question, and I'll try to see them all. Hopefully everything works in this presentation. Or if it's easier for you, you can unmute your microphone and ask me a question that way. So whatever you prefer. There you should be seeing the screen with, it says share something you have learned today, or ask a question, please. This is just a general presentation, right? Like I said, I will send you the document to your emails. I will send you the diploma during this week, and you can investigate a little bit more. And hopefully you feel more confident now about the language levels and what you can do with those levels, right? How you can apply them to your pre-A1. Here's a question. Hopefully you can see it. I'll go back in a moment. If you look at the description of languages in the full document, there is no level pre-A1. It's called level 0. So level 0 is the person who has just started learning language, and that person needs to start with like very basics, yes? And then in 100 hours, technically, after 100 hours of classes, the person will be able to pass the exam at level A1. Let's see. Good question. Okay, so Jose asks, are all English books based on CEFR? Mainly, all of the big editing identities, yes, or editors, they are based on CEFR. Cambridge, Oxford, what you have to do is you have to flip your book and look at the back, and in the back of the book you should see the CEFR corresponding level. Yes, so I don't know if you're here in anywhere in the, yes, you can see the things in the back of the book. Let's see what else. Dair, thank you for the information. It's so interesting, useful for us who are teaching language nowadays. My question, yes, all right. Let me see who else I can see. I didn't know about how long we take to learn languages, and that's a frequent question. Yes, I mean, I'm trying to be honest to my students. I never say, oh, have you ever seen those announcements all over Shela, for example? Learn English in 3 months. I mean, you can learn English in 3 months. The question is how many hours of classes you will take in 3 months. For example, my personal experience in Spanish is that I took an intensive course in the language school. So I took 4 weeks of classes and I spent 5 hours per day in the school. So in 1 week, I had 100 hours finished. Yes. And then after classes, I lived with local family and we had activities like salsa dancing or tortilla making or something like that. Movies. My first movie I also watched in Spanish. It was Voces Inocentes about Salvador. So my 100 hours turned into 200 hours in 1 month because I studied, I did homework, and I had language contact during the afternoons. Yes. And even though we were foreigners and many of us spoke English, one of coordinators back there, he was like, no, 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 no English, you speak Spanish, right? So I did it in 1 month. So can you learn English in 3 months? Yes, but what should you do? Can you continue, for example, working, studying English, and if you come twice a week to your English class, are you going to learn English fast? Not really. Okay, I feel more confident. All right, I'm glad, Miriam. So any kind of questions you may have later, you have my email, you even have my, um, you haven't have my WhatsApp. Let me answer. Helen, why our country just focus on American framework and not Europe framework? Maybe I need a little bit more of context for that question. American versus European. I don't know. Helen, maybe you can unmute your microphone and ask me the question if you want to.
Hello.
Hi,
Well,
tell me.
my question is just because I have a lot of books that are related just in American frameworks in like the
Mhm.
how they teach in the United States and not like focus on Europe frameworks that we are learning.
Mhm. I think you're more talking about the type of English language that we teach, but what if you flip your book? If you turn it around, do you have any kind of letters of B1, A2, C1 in your books? If you don't, then that's another thing. You can check what kind of edition it is and if this edition is connected to European framework, because technically it's called European because it comes from Europe and it comes from European Council, but it works for all languages. And since English has variations, but it's still the same language, yes, it has Australian variation, British variation, American variation, I don't know, South Africa variation if you want. Indian, have you heard Indian people speak English? So like that's just the variation of language, but language levels, they still stay the same if you can look at the descriptors. So if you look at your books and if you don't find anywhere in the back on the front any letters for European framework, try to investigate the editor, yes, who made those books, and if they have any connection, maybe the book is a little bit old or something, or if you want me to look at your book, you can send me information and I can do it
Okay,
for
thank you.
you. Sounds good. All right. Let me see. Axel says, now I have a better idea on how to make a better plan. I'm excited. Well, usually it works well for private students, yes, because usually in schools you don't really make a lot of decisions unless you're a coordinator, right? Okay, and I had also here a question. Luis, I wasn't able to submit my questions. How many hours do we teach each level? Well, again, it's very, very, very personalized, right? Like I said before. If you take groups, you should monitor every now and then their how they perform. Yes, you can use any kind of free tests online, and you can ask them to do the tests again and again, yes, to see how they develop. And like you said, you tell it to your students that they also need to add a little bit of their own time to study, right? Not 100 hours of classes, but spread out in 1 year, are not the same that 100 hours of classes doing homework at the same time, right? So I guess, guys, we should finish here. I'm glad also you said that Nearpod is a good place for presentations. I also love it. It's actually something new for me. And what it does, it helps you to avoid a lot of changing of the screens. People can only look at one and you can continue talking, and it's pretty interactive so people don't get bored. I hope so. All right, so I will send you information that I promised in the document, yes, with the links. I will send you the diploma, and if you're interested in the rest of the webinars, there will be 2 more. I will also send you the links for that. So thank you very much. Have a great afternoon, and it was actually very nice to hear you tell you. Oh, sorry, I didn't answer the question of Adolfo, but I can say yes, there are sub-levels. Absolutely, there are a lot of sub-levels. You can also search on the links that I sent for the document, and that's okay to have sub-levels. That's why, for example, the book that I mentioned before, Beep, yes, it has only level A1 divided in 6 levels, and that's okay because you have A1 and sub-levels. Yes, all right. Well, I'm glad it was useful for you guys. I'll stop sharing, and I will talk to you hopefully